that life is not just like a cigar, because every cigar comes to an end in this life. I mean, we should be thinking about the eternal life, which is everlasting, rather than this, momentary few years, 120, 130. Human beings don't live more than 130 years anymore. I don't think anyone does, right?
Not too many.
Yeah, not too many. So our life is not that we are created and given this life and that's it. We know that something will remain of us, the feeling that you have, and this will not go away. But either it goes to a place of happiness or it goes to a place of misery. And this is why Islam makes it very clear. When you read the Quran, have you read the Quran at all?
To be honest, no, I haven't.
Yeah.
I haven't read the Bible either. I mean, I'm aware of...
Yeah, if you read the Quran, you will see that it depicts very graphically in terms of the reality of this world and the reality that is awaiting, and how we can be convinced ourselves out of all these influences of Satan and other things to distract us from this reality. Just imagine you were a traveler, you're traveling to one place to the other, and then you just sat down in the tree and you think that's the whole thing. I mean, knowing that, okay, you have a destination to go to. This life is not the end goal. This is an area where we can test ourselves to go to an eternal destination. Just imagine, for the sake of argument, eternity compared to 120 years of life. This is nothing. And should we take that risk and waste this life away on eternal life? That is why the Quran constantly reminds us of this reality and tells us, look, all you need to do is simply surrender and submit your will to the will of God. And that will of God is expressed through the prophets and messengers. So in our case, we don't believe Prophet Muhammad is the first prophet.
Yeah.
Do you know, we believe
That's
many
right.
prophets have come.
From the Torah.
They all came to tell about the same message.
Yeah.
But Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that's what it means, is the finality of prophethood. God has sealed the prophethood with him. So there will be no other prophets to come to convince us anymore and show miracles and evidence. This Islam with the Prophet Muhammad is the final message from God and final guidance. So one has to then read and explore and then accept for themselves if you feel this is the truth or not. And the Quran challenges people to actually critically explore this. One thing, I mean, this is one thing I found interesting when I was, even though I'm Muslim, born Muslim, right? But the way the Quran addresses its people when it's interacting it is really interesting. The Quran says, it goes like this in Arabic. أَوَلَمْ يَرَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا أَنَّ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ كَانَتَا رَتْقًا فَفَتَقْنَاهُمَا وَجَعَلْنَا مِنَ الْمَاءِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ حَيٍّ أَفَلَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. Do not the unbelievers see that the heavens and the earth was joined together as one piece, and God parted it asunder, and he made from water every living thing? Would you then not believe? Now, what was striking to me, in my understanding at that time, it was a long time ago, it's addressing not the Muslims, it's addressing the unbelievers. And it ends with saying, would you then not believe? So clearly, if you think about the syllogism and the logic that we express, if I'm telling you, would you then not believe? That means what I've said beforehand, there's something of a substance for you to consider to believe.
Yeah.
So it addresses a question. Have you not seen the universe, how he created them? And it gives you the description of it.
Sure.
That it was from one piece and there was a partition of it, heavens and earth, everything. And not only that, it seems to be giving me additional information about astrophysics and then biology. Every living thing is from water. And then it's asking us rhetorically. Of course, the answer is yes, we should believe, because we now know that the universe had a common origin. The earth that we're talking about was all part of something that was a singularity, all in one piece. And there was this separation. And we know that the life that we know is actually from water. I mean, we are mostly water-based anyway ourselves. Most of us, 70%, is water in our cytoplasm. And then when it then asks, would you then not believe? This is what I found very interesting. The Quran needs to be read needs to be studied and pondered and reflected upon, because it addresses the people and it challenges them in their belief system, gives them the resources they need, and then tells them, what now? Are you going to believe it or not?
Yeah.
Simply not that, oh, if you don't believe, you go to hell. It's never like this. I mean, talking about hell, Quran describes graphically about hell, just to even make sure to people how nasty that place is in terms of suffering. That it's a place that you don't want to go. It's a place where you don't want to be in that place, because it's total punishment and suffering. And the Quran graphically illustrates this and proves it at the same time.
Yeah.
Now, how does that do that? This is again something that, you know, I personally liked it very much when I first read it. It says when these people who, of course, deserve to go to hellfire, there are some people who rejected God and they end up in hellfire. When their skin is roasted through, hell is because it's fire, God recreates the skin so that they may feel the punishment. Now, what's so special about this? What's the unique thing about this is this. Normally, you would expect someone to say, oh, he's going to punish you in hellfire, you're going to burn, and that's it, right? That's what you expect normal people to say. Like we say, look, oh, you've got this mountain, it's a peak at the top, and that's it. But if I said, look, mountains actually go downwards as well, like a peg, you would say, oh, that's not normal, that's something unique, and something to reflect on. And you can actually does that about the mountains. He says how God put the mountain as pegs. A peg, a top bit is a little bit, most of it is underground. That's how mountains are.
Yeah.
So the skin, when the Quran describes about the skin, it says, as often as they're burnt, God recreates the skin so they can feel the pain. Now, how is that something really remarkable? Do you know that what's in our skin?
What is it, our skin?
In our skin,
Yeah.
there are receptors for
Oh, right, yeah.
touch,
Yeah.
heat,
Yeah.
pressure,
Yeah.
and pain.
Sure.
So there are nerve endings on our skin which feels pain.
Yeah.
You know, it transmits the signal to the brain that it's going to be painful. So when somebody is burnt, a little bit burned, immediately you feel it. If you're on a fire, you remove your hand straight away, right?
Of course, yeah.
Because you feel pain. But if someone's burned with third-degree burn, it burns the whole of the skin and the flesh, and you can see, you know, even if you poke a needle through or something, or a syringe or injection, you would not feel pain anymore, because all the pain receptors have burnt away. So a full third degree, you know, a major degree burn, people don't feel any more pain. So God is telling you in the hellfire, the punishment is such that He's not going to just make you roast or burn in hellfire. He's going to give you fresh skin with fresh nerve endings of pain, so that you can feel the pain. So it's not a threat; it's a proof and a threat at the same time. So that's how, you know, Quran engages with people to reflect on it. I mean, I know you're not a religious person yourself, but you do have no doubt God exists and so on.
Yes.
I mean, at least if you were to understand that God created you for a purpose,
Yeah.
what would you then say you want to or need to do to fulfill that purpose and know that what the purpose is?
Well, to do really is that, how can I put this? I know what's right and wrong in the world, and I know that I'm not all good, you know, but I'm not all bad either, and I despise the evil that there's around. I may not despise all of the bad, because for me some things are bad and not that bad, you know. But some things are evil, and so I make it my mission, if you like, to condemn that evil, to be aware of the things that are bad. Now, I know there are things about myself that are bad, but I'm not proud of anything that I am bad over. Is not something I'm proud about. So I won't be going around boasting about it. Oh, I do this, I do that. So there are many people that go around boasting about
Yes.
the bad things that they do, and they want to portray that, well, actually they're not bad things, they're good things, and that you should agree, and that if you disagree, you're a bad person for disagreeing with the bad things that I'm doing. So I like my aim is to combat that. So I'm not saying that I'm a perfect person, but I know that what's bad is bad. I know there's bad in me, and there's no bad in others. And there's many people seem to embrace evil, the extremeness, the extreme bad, and so I endeavour to combat that all of the time. I endeavour to do that.
Sure.
That's
So, would you say, when you consider what is good and bad and you try to be good and combat what is evil or bad as much as you can, this is something that's noble. I would say this is
Sure.
something,
Yeah.
definitely.
Sure.
But to fulfill the purpose of our creation, we need to be absolutely clear what our framework is of this life. How we can govern ourselves within a particular framework, which constitutes in the eyes of God acceptable and not acceptable. Because sometimes the concept of bad and evil can change depending on different time and different place and different societies. Some don't change. Some universally will say murder is bad. Okay, others may say, for example, certain things may be good at a certain point or bad in a certain point of time. Things can be relatively like this. So when God created us and sends us prophets and messengers, he gives us this boundary with clarity in terms of what is acceptable, what is not, and wants us to live our life accordingly. You are already living within a particular boundary. You have already stopped yourself from say, I'm not going to harm others. You've made a boundary. Do you harm others or everyone you see in the street? Do you harm them? Of course not. So you've made it to yourself a particular way of living where a boundary that you say, okay, I'm not going to go beyond this because this is the way I'm going to live my life, which I consider to be an acceptable way of living. So Islam gives us this boundary and tells us this is the way to live. So what I'm encouraging you to, if you were to read the Quran and consider that if this is indeed the message from God through his prophet that he's given us, then we should be someone willingly taking that. It's not that you lose anything. In fact, you will be the one then with this content on your heart that yes, I know that I was created by my creator, and now I know for sure that I am fulfilling the purpose of my creation, rather than I make my own rules and on my own boundaries. Because everyone can make their own. Do you remember, probably you don't, there was a Channel 4 program many years ago. It has never gone out of my mind. There was a guru, gurus are like religious holy men, and the way he was expressing his love and adoration and veneration of God is by baking his own feces and eating them, because he didn't consider them to be anything bad, because he says everything is part of God anyway. Now, of course, to me, not being in that tradition, it didn't feel right to me. Okay, that this is how you can express love and veneration to God. My question would be, does God approve that? Is this what God will accept in the first place? You can bring your own ideas and understandings of how you want to express your love. To give you another example, this is how, I still remember it, but I say, does this person not realize that, is this acceptable to God or not? If you love your wife so much, and you want to express this love, and you say, no, I'm going to give her something to express my love, some gift or something, and you like football too much, right? You are into football, you play. In fact, you are actually a good player. You've gone to the nationals and you've won lots of trophies, and you have your boot that you always use, right? Because that is the one that secured all the goals. Smelly boot, because you've been wearing for a long time. Your spray doesn't work, smelly boot. And you say, you know what? I'm going to give this boot of mine, pair of boots, to my wife to express my love. And realizing that she doesn't like football, in fact she hates football because you spend too much time on it, right? She doesn't like it. Now, she may understand when you're giving it some kind of thing, but this is not something that she appreciates and loves, okay?
Yeah.
So it's interesting that from this example, we need to know what would make her happy, or what would make her be pleased with you,
Sure.
or accept you as
Yeah.
a gesture that you're making, instead of what we think or you think,
Yeah.
which is pleasing and acceptable. So this is how Islam reminds us that we need to know what we have to do in terms of what is acceptable to God, because that acceptability determines our future in the hereafter. Okay? We can't just make our own rules and say, "Okay, I'm going to worship God like this." Worshipping means submitting and surrendering God in the way we like.
Yeah.
So prophets and messengers come and they demonstrate within their lives what to do and how to do it, how to perform it, these actions of submission. So it's not just your heart only, I believe, but demonstrating that I believe. If you know, "No, I love God," and guess what? You don't do anything God tells you. You say, "I love you, God," and then you go and cheat with people and you oppress people. And God says, "Don't oppress," and you oppress, and you still say, I love God." Your heart, your belief, and your action don't match. So Islam tells us that submission to God
Yeah.
has to be not only through your heart, but also through your limbs and your actions. So you, as a person of intelligence and respect and a very noble character.
Limited intelligence.
Yeah, yeah. We are all limited in intelligence anyway. No one is super genius like this, right?
Yeah.
We all are. But from what I can understand is,
Yeah.
God has given you and ennobled you with a good character and knowledge and understanding. What I would say is, as a Muslim, I would invite you to look into Islam. I would invite you to look into the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his life and his teaching, and invite you to read the Quran, which we believe is a guidance for us, a guidance manual which will determine the consequence of the hereafter, because this is what tells us, who God is. Because many times we can speculate about a God, because you can speculate and come to correct understanding about God in many aspects, that he must be one, that he must be absolute, he must be sovereign, he must be self-sufficient, he must be independent. But there are many other aspects of God, that God is merciful, God is kind, God is just.
Yeah.
So these things, our intellectual speculation will have a limitation on. And that's why revelation, God, the one who is the creator of us, can confirm to us who or what he is.
Yeah.
So that our conception of him will be correct. Islam, through the Quran and the teaching of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, gives us this correct concept, and it invites us to enter the fold of Islam and live our life accordingly, so that we have success in this life and success in the hereafter.
Yeah. Well, that's very well put. Very well put.
Yeah. Do you have copies of the Quran at home? Or
Actually,
access to
I do have at least a copy of
Okay.
English
translation?
translation
Yeah.
that was given me.
Yeah.
As indeed I have Bible and
Bible
so
and
on.
so on.
But to be perfectly honest, I'm not a person. I'm not a great reader really, going through things. I'm more. I connect with certain things that resonate with me. There's much in, probably more in the Bible that I've
Familiar with, because of your
had a-
upbringing from it.
and much of that doesn't resonate with me that well.
So these are the things
Yeah.
where you can now explore and see what resonates and what doesn't, and whatever it doesn't, you can come to us and ask questions.
That's right.
Because sometimes you will see some things won't resonate with us because of an obstacle that we have placed on ourselves. For example, if the Quran says, for example, you should not do this, or you should do this, and while we're at it, we will say, "Oh, that's putting a limitation on it." It becomes an obstacle. But if we were to remove ourselves from this bias of some kind of, our self-glorification, or whatever, you want to frame it that way, our self-gratifications of our own self, independently look at it, what Islam wants from us is this. So you do not worship man, woman, trees, anything of the creation, basically. You reject worshipping all of that, and you surrender yourself and to worship God. I
Yes.
mean, this kind of gratitude is something that is inbuilt in ourselves anyway, right?
Yes.
For example, imagine we were both talking and walking, and then suddenly I didn't realize a car came over me and then I had an accident. You, from your own kind and compassionate heart, called the ambulance, took me to the hospital.
Sure.
I needed blood, you gave me blood, and then I needed a kidney, and you gave me a kidney just to save me. It's not that, I know we had a contract and somehow. You only knew me for like, half an hour or 1 hour like this, but because of your own kindness, from your own kindness, this is your own kindness, kind heart, you're helping me, right?
Yeah.
With nothing of asking for any returns, like, oh, I'm going to offer you money or a job or anything.
Exactly.
I wake up, and then I see you and I hear from the nurses and everyone saying, this is what you've done. Now, what would be my natural response to you? Should I say, get lost, I didn't want to be helped? My natural response would be, thank you.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you, gratitude.
Yeah, cool.
That is a natural response. We see that in everyday life.
Yeah.
When the Creator has given us a kidney, 2 kidneys,
Yes, indeed.
and everything else,
Then we should be
and
grateful,
we should be grateful to God.
Yeah.
That being grateful is a natural response to God. And that is the essence of worship in Islam,
Yes.
where you become
Indeed.
grateful to God, but in a particular way, to demonstrate in a correct way, in the correct manner.
Yeah.
That is what Islam will give you.
That's right.
Because you are already showing gratefulness to God. I'm sure you're thankful to God,
Yeah.
keeping you healthy and so on.
That's right.
Yeah.
I mean, like, in my own experience of religion, growing up as a child, and going to mass, in Catholicism and so on, has never drawn me. The ritualistic side of things, kneeling down, sitting down, kneeling down, standing up, ritualistic doing this, has, always left me cold.
Right,
It's not for me at all.
Okay.
I'd be more inclined to be going out and doing something, helping God, helping people that are needing help, doing something, not ritualistic things.
Yeah.
For some people, rituals, they love all that sort of thing. For me, it's
Sure.
Okay,
let's explain a little bit. Islam combines both. It doesn't tell you you only do rituals, but it tells you you go and help people, you go and do these things, you help each other, you support each other, you mutually, help and support each other to a point that, okay, you become prosperous and you progress. The whole idea is that you not just sit there, do nothing, you look and go, travel around the earth and see and do all of these things, okay? So there's always this element of progression and development of your inner self as well as the world around you to make you live in this life and look after the environment and so on. But the ritualistic aspect, sometimes, if you do it in a way that will connect you, perhaps that's what is missing, I think. For example, when we kneel on prostrate, what happens when I'm exercising a lot? I realize that the only way I can get this breath and so on is by, you'll probably say this, this is the position I take because now I'm exhausted because of this. I come to a point when I'm trying to rejuvenate my body with energy and oxygen.